can we talk a bit about the Nova Twins?
Yes, of course.
Because that's a really successful example for you guys, right?
Yeah.
So how was their journey from that kind of starting point to where they are now?
Well, that's interesting because when Nova Twins got onto my radar personally, they had already released something of their own. It was an album, their first album, but that had never really properly commercially been released. And I don't think, for instance, I don't think they'd released it on vinyl or anything like that. And then the pandemic happened, the delightful pandemic, which made everybody rethink. And I must say, to Marshall's credit, even at that point, the label was in its early years. I thought this might be the end of it, right? Because no one knew, with the business shutting down and what we were going to do. But, fortunately, the build was ongoing with this place. And Nova Twins started having conversations with us. And I was just super blown away by just what they were about, really. They really had something to say. They really were powerful in how they wanted to do it, and as soon as the doors opened here, we were able to get Nova Twins into this studio. They were the first recordings to be made here, and that formed then the basis of what we then which became Supernova, which was the Mercury Prize nominated, 2 Brit Award nominated, endless front cover album cycle. So for us, Nova Twins, it was the right time for sure. And because of the press and the way that, the buzz was going, even though they couldn't work through the pandemic, the appetite was so there for them that as soon as the pandemic ended, they went on tour with Bring Me the Horizon, and that just set everything off, and that was the start of that whole incredible journey. So the pandemic, it was a terrible time, but it gave us the chance to form the relationship with the Nova Twins, and here we are.
Yeah, I think I saw them support Skunk Anansie.
Yes, yeah.
So, as I guess from coming into the studio, recording the album, obviously getting them out on the road, as you've said, is a really big thing. Was there a tipping point where things really started to pick up momentum? Because you could get, this is an assumption, right? But you could get a good artist in the studio, a good artist out on the road, but it might never pick up pace enough to get it to the point that you've just described. So was there a tipping point with them where you're like, okay, now this is starting to pick up momentum, this is starting to pick up press, and what was that?
I would love to sit here and tell you that it was something to do with us, but actually it wasn't. It was the group. The group had an energy about them that it was palpable. Every time they played a show, everywhere they went, the excitement within we had a distribution deal that we just started with a company called Fuga, and Fuga had a pretty much all-female marketing team, and just the excitement that people had to work with Nova Twins was incredible. So it was almost like everything was in the right place at the right time. They made a great record here with Jim Abbas, Jim Abbas is a very established record producer, Arctic Monkeys and Adele, all kinds of people. And he just, the energy in the room here, the energy around them at media, I can't say it was us, but I think we added perhaps the special sauce.
Yeah, it's your job then to, I guess, spot that. Because I'm assuming you got a sense of that when you signed them, and that's the reason you signed them, because you're like, right, there's something really, really cool here. There's an energy about this artist, right? Your job is then to throw the match on the fire, the fuel on the fire, right, and put what it needs behind it to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, actually. I guess you could talk to any A&R person or label person about, why did you sign that band or why did you sign that guy or whatever. There's always something special about, you want every artist that you're involved in to succeed. So, we all enter the room hopefully with the same objectives. But sometimes you just meet a band and you just think, well, if it isn't us, it'll be someone else. I mean, they were always going to get off the starting grid, right? I think fueling the fire is a good analogy, or whatever you call that, because we were ready with money at the right time. So when certain tour support opportunities came up, a band needs money. I mean, there is no question. This journey of for any band, when they enter a record label with whatever label it is, whether it's us or one of the other competing independents or the majors, 9 times out of 10 the opportunities are there, but who's going to pay for it? So we did support the band, and we have continued to support the band economically in mainly in touring, actually, because I mean their sales are good, and and the income that we receive is flowing through nicely. So it's worked, but there have been a couple of deep breath conversations about how much do we need to do that tour, But now, of course, it's turning round, and the curve, works the right way. So
I don't know if you can talk about numbers, but like, let's say a tour support opportunity comes up. What sort of numbers are you talking about to get a band on the road for a support tour?
Yeah. You are talking, if it's arenas, because obviously there's tour supports in clubs. Sometimes you have to support a band to go and open for somebody in the Horn in St Albans, which holds 140 people or something, right? Still, there's no fee for the support band, is there? The support band gets a fiver. So how much does it cost to get the band? Well, you've got to have a van, you've got to get to the gig, you've got, there's a cost. Someone has to underwrite that. I think tour support is the biggest number on a page. What used to be the really big number on a page was the marketing. Videos used to be, I remember, back in the day, sort of call it the 90s, a video, £50,000 for a video, everyone, well, it's only 50. Oh, maybe we should spend more, 60, 70. And that's because the numbers were different, and if you did get the breakthrough, the volume of physical goods that record companies were selling generated lots of dollars, right? So, but we're now in a slightly different world. So the numbers, if you're going to ask me, say, what would a tour cost, I think you're talking in the sort of 20,000, tens to 20s are not uncommon, and they're big numbers, right? And you have to take a deep breath and go, ooh, and you have to have a conversation.
Because at that point, I guess you've got to get a band, the crew, all the costs that go with that, out on the road for a support tour in an arena environment, let's say.
Yeah.
But you're then looking at that clearly as let's say it's 20 grand. How does that? How do you look at that coming back? And clearly you're getting lots of exposure. There's lots of new eyeballs, building a fan base. It's all really good, but you have to commercially trust that comes back at some point.
You do, and we would see that when you're budgeting a tour like that, you're looking at it in the short and long term. So if in the short term you were getting somewhere close through vinyl sales, for instance, right? Okay, so are the band able to sell vinyl copies or CDs, right? Because that's in venue sales can be very lucrative and bring pennies back in. You're not going to look at trying to get that money back fast, because it just doesn't come like that. But you are looking at it as a building block to, I mean, a band without any form of tour support they do exist, but it is really, really hard when you're trying to fund everything else. So the numbers that you're looking at, 20 grand, 30 grand, or whatever it might be, you are not looking at getting those costs back in any short order. You are looking at it over a period of, say, 18 months, 2 years.
Definitely. And that I guess that's any marketing investment though, right?
Yeah.
And this is all coming from a place with Marshall of genuinely wanting to support new artists, right? And there's definitely a vibe of genuinely wanting to do that. What's the difference between a label like yours and a major? Because I imagine the commercial pressure being at a major, say Sony, would be far, far greater, right?
For sure. And I mean, there are some incredibly visionary A&R people at the respective major labels around the world. And clearly, an artist, say like Ed Sheeran, he didn't arrive at a stadium level. He was walking around with his acoustic guitar, sleeping on people's floors. Someone had the vision to, believe that actually, I think it was Elton actually, and the Rocket team who spotted him first. But that's a kind of artist that was determined to get there, and people are dragged along by the energy, and I think. Yeah, I just think you have to go on a journey of belief. Sorry, the question I missed. I think I might have slightly gone off topic there.
No, you're all good. It was really interesting. We were talking about how when you're putting tour support and big numbers behind an artist, you're doing it from a position of your Marshall, and you genuinely the whole idea behind the
majors.
label.
That was
talent. But the majors.
I'll go back on track. The difference is, I think with the majors, like I said, there's a lot of visionary people there, but they have a different view of the value of those recordings to their brand, say, right? So each release that Sony or Warner's or any label, that's living on their share of the revenue, they have to look at it on a mathematical basis, right? They have to go, right, okay, well, we're going to spend, big R&D, right? Let's say they're going to spend 200 grand, right? So what do we need to do that? How long is it going to take to get that back? They are not really thinking about the long term of getting that money back. They want a big return on that investment in a period of time, or it's not really been worth their investment. So their curve is so different to ours, right? Because we're not essentially doing it for a profit on that music. We want the profit because we want the band to have the profit. We want the band to have an ongoing business. But as long as they're part of what we're doing and what we are trying to do and helping supporting artists and having that feeling of community and family, that's when, for us, it makes sense. Whereas for the majors, it's all numbers. It has to be, because they have to keep filling up that, column with superstars. So development for them is they have a much shorter view. If it doesn't happen in a period of time, probably not going to go on, right? There's a kind of a tipping point, whereas our tipping point comes much later.
So arguably, you get a much more natural, organic development of an artist with a label like yours.
Yeah, that's the theory behind it, because I think, we've got some pretty out there artists on this label, and one of the things we want to do is the things that we want to do. So it's like, I'm signing a young band at the moment called the Molotovs. They're a London band. They've done 120 gigs. The lead singer is 16 years old. His sister is 18. They just supported the Sex Pistols over the weekend, and I've just so taken by the fact that they're already out there generating all of this energy for themselves, all of this content for themselves. It just felt like, well, that's an artist that we can bring into our world. They are on their mission. We can actually really help that journey. They don't exist because of us. They exist because they're a band, and most of the bands are like that on this label. And looking for short gains on artists is just not really our reason to be here.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So to wrap up, Steve, like, what would your advice be for anyone, I guess, looking to push or market music or market anything creative? What would your one piece of advice be?
Wow. Yeah. I guess the advice would be stick to your guns. I mean, if you believe that your product is worthy of its position, then believe in it and go for it. No one's, it's no point someone saying, well, I really like what you're doing, but can you please change it? That's not going to be the way forward, is it? So when I see a band, or we see a band here, and we get excited about a band, and we've got a nice internal, kind of panel of people with great taste and so on. If we, the last thing we're going to do is go, right, well, let's get that band in and let's change everything about the band. That's not going to go, is it? So it's the same with guitarists. If a guitarist comes in and has always had the ambition to play Marshall, but they're playing some strange, weird music, we're happy that they're playing Marshall. We're not going to say, hey, you really shouldn't play like that. You should play like this. So if you stick to your guns, that's the thing. Yes, of course, you may be wrong, and that's the life risk of all of us.
It happens.
It does.
But look, Steve, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating. And thank you to everyone for listening in.
Cheers. Thank you.